Previously, I mentioned that today we would work on the crank handle for the old post drill. And that is exactly what I have in mind. But first, I've got a little bit of mail to open. This is from Close Enough Machine, or I think it's Eric Douglas. And I know what he sent. He said he was kind of bored and he was making some of these for himself. And he said, I'll just make you some while I'm at it. And I appreciate that because I could use what I think he sent here. Of course, I could be wrong. This could be from somebody else. But what he has made, ooh, those are nice. Wow. What he has made me is a set of dies for the Guillotine tool. And these are the 3/4 by 2 dies. And this is a very nice set of 1/2-inch fullers. And my current fullers are mild steel and they're kind of breaking down. I think he said these were 4140. So thank you very much for the dies. I appreciate that. Now another little bit of news this morning, which would have been yesterday morning if you're just now tuning in. We did the first ever live stream here at Black Bear Forge, and it was merely a test of the concept. Can I use my cell phone not only to record the live stream, but to actually transmit, make the connection to YouTube? That worked well on the third attempt after I finally figured out what all the settings had to be and got the microphone set right, so it worked. Still some bugs to work out, and I'd still like to figure out how to do multiple cameras so we can get close-ups while we're doing a live stream. So there won't be a live stream from the shop anytime real soon, but once I get internet up here, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to make that work for those of you who like live streams. If you don't like live streams, I suggest you probably shouldn't watch the live streams. But anyways, what about the post drill? So let's talk just briefly about what my post drill is and what I know about it and why I have it and why I wish I had kept the other one that I had and things like that. So let's go over to where it is and take a look at it. So this is a post drill, and I believe we now call this a post drill because it's usually mounted to a post in the middle of the shop somewhere. Looking in my old copy of the Buffalo Forge catalog, they just call it a drill. And post drill is clearly a newer term. And it usually has a crank handle because it's hand operated, and the crank handle goes over here and goes over this fitting, or I think this one. I think it could be moved from one to the other, and that gives you a 2-speed arrangement. And when you crank it, it not only turns the chuck so that you're turning the drill there, but up here, and I don't know if you can see that or not, I'll try and get a better image of it. It has a little pawl that turns the down feed. So it has automatic down feed that is matched to whatever speed you're turning the crank. So they're really quite a handy thing, and they're really quite capable. So let me do that again. You can see that pawl advancing that down feed. That's pretty darn handy. It's a little hard to turn by turning the flywheel. Typically these just use 1/2-inch straight shank bits that were put in with a set screw, and they didn't have a chuck. This is an add-on chuck that just happens to have a 1/2-inch shank there so that this can be used with regular old drill bits if you need to. Unfortunately, this chuck has been on here for a while without being used, so it's going to need to be de-rusted a little bit and cleaned up. That's what happens when you don't use these things for a while. Now, when I got this old post drill, it actually had a piston welded to the side of it, just the head of the piston, and I presume that was because they were running it off a flat belt. A lot of things in old shops ran off an overhead shaft that had flat belts, and this could have been set up that way with that piston serving as the pulley on this end. Flat belt goes up to the ceiling running off a gas motor out in the yard somewhere. And the old power hammers, like the old Little Giants, ran that way, and grinders ran that way, and you could get forge blowers that would run off of that. And the whole shop could run off that one engine running that shaft. But I ground that off of there and got rid of it because it wasn't something I wanted on this. I didn't really like the way it looked. And I'm never going to run it off a flat belt because I don't think I'm ever going to buy all those parts. This thing has seen some better days. The strap that holds the table in is cracked, and it's been repaired with another strap over there. Pretty typical blacksmith shop repair. It's kind of crude, but 100% functional. And I got nothing against that. It's just not in the best shape in the world. So it's not a pristine post drill. but it should be a completely functional post drill. Now I used to have another one. It was about, 2/3 of this size, considerably smaller, but it was complete, it worked, I've drilled holes with it, and for some reason when I decided I didn't need 2 post drills, I thought, oh, I want the bigger one, so I'm going to keep the big one, I'll get it fixed up. I really wish I kept that smaller one. It was actually marked Champion, so I knew who made it. I've never seen another one like it. Nobody I've talked to has ever seen another one that size because it was really quite small. Probably a valuable collectible. I sold it way too cheap, but that's the way it is, and this is the one I've got. And it's a pretty common looking post drill. Has no markings on it. The old Buffalo and Champion ones, it was cast into this frame so you could read what it was. This one's got nothing. If it was painted on, it's long gone. So it's just a no-name post drill, but still, like I say, should be completely functional once we get a crank handle on it. And that handle should go on either one of these and needs to be some sort of a tube. If you look in the old Buffalo Forge catalog, you can see that it's just got a sleeve that comes out far enough for the handle to pass beyond the end of this shaft, and has a set screw to hold it on here and a set screw that holds the handle in place. So I'm going to start with this piece of heavy wall pipe that I've got, but this is too small, so I'm going to have to take this to the forge, try and reduce the diameter without crushing it, make it fit, and then we'll worry about making a handle out of it. So I'm just going to work this in a swedge, kind of lightly. I'm going to try and keep it round. What you're actually doing when you do this, because it's not pinched, if you were over the horn, you'd be pinching it and drawing it out, but because you're not pinching it, you're upsetting the walls and making the pipe diameter slightly smaller. And I'm going to go check this every heat and make sure that it isn't getting too small or too deformed, because it is definitely not perfectly round. It'd be nice if I had a matching top swedge and a striker. It's still considerably too large. I'm going just really light because I don't want to get carried away and crush this. That puts out a lot of heat. I may have to put a glove on. Woo! So I can put this drift in there just to try and round that up. I don't really want to drive it all the way in, or I'll end up flaring the end here. Just enough to make sure that it's truly round. I may need to do that from both ends after I cut it, so after this maybe I'll go cut it. So that's still slightly larger than I want it. I think it's a good time to cut it off back here, turn it around, clean both ends up, and sneak up on the final fit. So my cut end is slightly larger than the end that was out, so I'm going to work it a little bit. And this is real close to fitting. And remember, it shrinks a little as it cools. Plus, it doesn't have to be super tight. It's a hand crank machine, not something running at high speed. You guys actually get a better view of what's going on through the camera than I do, because you're in front of it. This, of course, will need some sort of grinding and cleaning up on the ends to make it all smooth on the end. But I think that's pretty close. Okay, it definitely gets a little out of round. I found a piece of just mild steel bar that is essentially the same as my shaft. Now, I shouldn't be drawing this out because that's loose enough I'm not pinching, but it's going to help keep it round, help me true it up. If I get to the point that it's pinched, then I'll be drawing it out and I don't need to go that far. I think we're probably done. I'm going to let that cool and then we'll try it on and see if it shrinks and fits. I don't want it to be a drive-in fit. I want it to just slide over there. Now I got a piece of 3/8 by 3/4 I'm going to make the crank out of. I'm just going to round those corners off. This will be the part that the handle goes on. I'll probably do a little grinding, but might as well start by forging the corners down. Let's go ahead and punch a hole for the handle to go into. Don't forget to cool your punch every now and then. Yeah, that didn't go through. That's really surprising. Must not have lined it up quite perfect. Now it's all the way through. Almost. That little burr on the back. There we go. Certainly you could do that with a drill and just grind it in. Not a big deal one way or the other. So this then should have a little offset or a dog leg in there, and then this other part, pretty much nothing happens to it. It just goes through a slot in that first sleeve. Just going to ease these edges a little bit before I put that dog leg in. And probably I will cut this piece off before we're done. But I'll wait until we test fit it on the drill and find out how long it needs to be. I think I'll just do this in the vise. I'm not real sure how long this would have been on the original drill, so I'm kind of making a educated guess. This is just going to rough it in. I'll clean it up a little bit more at the anvil, or come back to the vise and clamp it the other way. Another place that would be really good for this would be the fly press. That looks much better. Now, having little blocks of steel sometimes makes this kind of stuff easier if you have one just the right size. That's pretty good right there. It's a little tall. I think I'll find something else. But you can get pretty darn close just doing this. And if it's the right size, again, you could use the step of the anvil, but that's a little bit off there. You want these parallel, which is why the block helps. But also not completely necessary if you don't have anything. Work this way as well as the other way. So I think that's all we need to do to this piece. Once we get this all assembled, we'll see how it all relates to each other and cut this to the right length. So we've got our basic parts all forged out and ready to go. This has to slot through the pipe piece, and then the pipe piece is going to need a couple of set screws. One to hold it to the post drill, and another one to hold the handle in to this piece. But first I think we need to create those slots, and I'm going to put those at a 1/2 inch from this end. That's a 3/8 bar, so there'll be 3/16 of material left on the outside, which I think is plenty. And I'm just scribing around here with this little machinist's gauge, I guess it is. Something I got at McMaster-Carr. And that'll just create a line that I can follow. And then I'll start doing this by drilling holes. Now keep in mind that this is 3/4 wide and 3/8 thick, so if I drill 2 3/8 holes, they'll just touch in the middle. I need to drill them at 3/8 centers, and that way, as the bit swings around the outside, I should end up with 3/4, and then I'll have to file out the middle of that. I'm just going to go ahead and use this as kind of my gauge for those holes. And the first 2 are no problem. Probably better to drill them a little close and file it to size than it is to drill them too far apart. Although again, this isn't a high-speed machine. If it's a little bit sloppy, as long as the set screw locks in tight, it should be just fine. I think what I'm going to do here is use this to go across here and see where my line is there. Now remember, that's not right where I want it. I've got to be in a little bit from that edge. We'll go there and use this to mark that. So I need to go drill 4 holes in this piece and then make this piece fit it. And of course a center punch mark always helps. So I'm just going to go with the 3/8 bit. You could drill it undersize if you really wanted to file right to size, but as I say, I'm not real worried about it if it ends up a hair big after filing. It was a lot faster to get it to this point. Now I think a file is definitely the way to clean it up. Yeah, that's just what I want. Now I want to put another punch mark in for a set screw that will engage the gear on the machine, and then one more that will lock this in place. I'm going to use 1/4-20 set screws. That's a number 7 drill bit. A little oil on your tap. This is a fairly thin piece for threading. It's a pretty heavy wall for pipe, but it's just a little bit on the thin side for this. So the smaller the screw, the more threads you're going to get engaged. If this doesn't hold, I will simply weld a nut on the outside, and the nut will have plenty of threads plus whatever's in there. Now what I've got here are just 1/4 square-headed bolts. Somewhere I've got some 1/4 square-headed set screws, which are different. The head is smaller than a square-headed bolt, and they are much shorter sizes. If I can't find those eventually, maybe we'll make some square-headed set screws as part of a future video. And that goes through there. And we'll have to figure out what this adjustment should be, but until then, we'll just start with something here. And that'll hold that from sliding. Way too long, but it'll hold it. So now in use, this goes on here like this. Shorter set screw here really look better. Just a little rag from the drilling the hole and tapping it. Once that's in, this screw will behave better. But that's good and solid. The wobble there is actually just in the drill itself. Now, I think this is way too much. Wow, that so I can't be any longer than this, or I hit that upper pulley there. That's interesting. And I think that's too long there. I'm going to cut this off there, and that gives me that much adjustment and about that much adjustment. I'll find that, mark that again with my pencil. So I can put that back through and make sure it's not going to hit up there. And tighten this. I think if I'm going to use this, I got to move all this stuff that's on the wall back here, pull that nail out. I'd hate to bash that with my knuckle going around in circles here. That's pretty good. And I just have a handle that I previously turned for another purpose and didn't use, and this is sort of temporary. I don't think I want the tapered handle on this, but we'll see. And it has a nut on there, and I'll put a nut on the other side. It's just a carriage bolt running through there for now. I think maybe a new handle and making a bolt that isn't bright and shiny and 2 set screws might be a whole other video. This thing also needs oil. I'm going to find all the right little oil points for this. Seems like it should have holes in it, but I'm not seeing them. So that may just be a matter of squirting a little oil in here and there until you get it all running smooth. Now, instead of having to crank this to downfeed it, you can just manually downfeed it. Adjusting the table up is another option, but this is in such bad shape there, so there's still more repairs to go, but I think we'll be able to drill a hole with it in just a second. So let's see what happens here. This will be the first hole I've ever drilled with this particular post drill. I'm not worried about where the hole goes at this point. Okay, we should run that down till it touches, I think, or almost touches. These things are slow. And I see some chips coming up. This is a good workout. some point I need to try this other pulley and see if that's a faster setting than this is. Although this is a fair amount of work down here, so. When these were common, people weren't in a big hurry. I think I know why the previous owner of this had it hooked up to an overhead shaft. There we go. Yep, going the wrong way. So if you're looking at increasing your speed for production work, this probably isn't the tool for you. But if you have a non-electric shop and you don't drill holes very often because blacksmiths used to punch more holes than they did drill holes, kind of wonder why. In that case, this might be an interesting tool to have in your shop. Here it's mostly an ornament, but now I can use it. I'll do some more cleaning, some more oiling, get it up and running better, and we'll make some more changes, and then maybe do another video on the subject. So if you're looking for a really good one-armed workout, pretty much has to be your right hand unless you can find a left-handed post drill, and I don't think they ever made those. This is the tool for you. But as always, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button down there. Feel free to stick around, watch a few of the other videos. Of course, share the videos with your friends. If you would like to provide financial support for the videos here at Black Bear Forge, there are links in the video description for both PayPal and Patreon. Those are merely donations. The content is free. In the meantime, I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, but be safe, wear your safety glasses, and we will see you for the next one.